This is Jim Moran, the Director for Asia with the External Action Service, answering a few questions for the EU Asia Centre website. First, Jim, how would you assess the importance of Asia for the European Union?
Well, I think it's difficult to underestimate the importance of Asia for the European Union and vice versa. If you just take one very important statistic and look at the trade flows over the last 10 years, we are each other's number one trading partner. We're interdependent to a point which I don't think we've seen, certainly not in recent history, possibly not in all time. We are utterly dependent on each other's producers, investors and markets in taking forward our respective development. We're also increasingly locked together in common concerns about global security, about regional affairs, regional integration and so on. And I think we've seen an explosion in EU-Asia relations since the turn of the century, and I think we're only going to see more of it as this century progresses.
There's some criticism that the EU policy towards Asia doesn't really amount to more than a China policy. Is that still true?
Well, it might have had something to it a few years ago, but I don't think you can say that today. It's true that in the early part of the 2000s there was something of a honeymoon period between the EU and China. We discovered each other and we were criticized for that in Europe, not paying enough attention to the rise of India, Southeast Asia, and other parts of the continent. But today I think it's a much broader spectrum that we're dealing with. One example, of course, is the ongoing negotiations on a free trade agreement with India, the fact that we have such an agreement already with Korea, and our partnership agreements, many of which have been agreed with other countries, notably in Southeast Asia. So the last 5 or 6 years has seen a broadening and a widening of our scope in terms of the EU-Asia relations.
You mentioned the PCAs. What will they mean in practice in terms of upgrading relations with the various Asian countries with whom we have PCAs?
Well, these partnership agreements include common political commitments, such as the fight against WMDs, such as the joint commitment to human rights and the rule of law. We've never had that before with Asian countries. I think it's extremely important that we have a commonality of values insofar as we can have those things, and these agreements are giving us the possibility for that. And the agreements open up a whole new swathe of areas for cooperation which we were not paying attention to before, especially in regulatory matters, so important these days for successful economic development both in Europe and in Asia.